It was the year 1960 when Moira Small and her chum Lil Neilson asked Sue, Moira's sister, to a party at Fiona Laird's place. Sue 14, Moira and Lil 21. "How would you paint the sun?" asked Sue of Lil later, sitting beside her in the back seat of the car when the sun went down on Forfar.
"I don't know," said Lil.
And Sue knew she would say that too. Fiona Laird's father kept terrapins, and there was a pond at the foot of the garden for swimming and fishing from boats. Sue got steaks. Mrs. Laird put on a wonderful spread of curry with coconut and raisins and meringues with jelly and cream. There were other art students there too, and people from Dundee Rep. Rita Ginnagal, the stage manager, soon to give Sue big opportunity of seeing what they did behind the sets. Amanda Walker in 18 in the Shade, Nicola Williamson in Inadmissible Evidence, Anthony Page, Michael Culver, Luana Cooper, Jill Gascoigne, and the school-age Sue Brian Cox. Brian had his dramatic debut in the Labour Hall, Broughty Ferry Road, Dundee, in Edward Albee's Zoo Story, which the Courier didn't review, although it was their drama group. Brian first judged for the part of the narrator in Under Milkwood.
Banks of Balgay, under Milkwood, Broughty, with a view of eternity, stands this unknown city of rediscovery, where two hills, Tinter and Corby, representing women's breasts, were demolished, thus extracting much of the goddess energy, where the full moon rises out of the sea, illuminating dolphins, river turtles, cemeteries. Could this be where you and I belong? Rediscovery. Feeling of the mist, to get back to the start. Rediscovery. Make love with your life. Make peace with your heart.
Other art students of that era were Neil Dallas Brown, Pat Gordon, Austin Hayes, Sheila Wrigglesworth, Maureen Emery, Elliot Rudy, Joe Bannett, Elizabeth Hill. Following behind them were Johnny Johnson, Joe McIntyre, Ian Bryson, Sandra McNeilans, along with Liz Shepherd, who Sue first met by a CND bonfire on Broughty Ferry Beach.
Skies are gray. You'll never know how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. From the kid comes back to meet his nurse, and Liz has grandchildren at Dundee Art School. So we'll keep good strong as we sing this song for Tony and those we can.
Moira was always talking about going to Sue, how she wore Old Spice, refused to wear skirts, and had a girlfriend she met at her boarding house. Other students brought her work, even before she met Joan Eardley at Hospitality of Our Grove, a summer school set up for promising students. Then Lil met Joan, to join her later to be betrothed to Catterline. Moira was to be betrothed to a variety of men, having been art school rebels queen she continued in that vein. Joan Eardley had become famous in the 1950s for her paintings of Glasgow street children. But when she discovered Catterline through her friend Annette Stephen, she captured the energy of that coastal landscape in a style without precedence.
the women of Catterline, the fishers, the painters, the keepers of peace, although they departed from this earthly realm, their lives are strong as the north rolling sea. Of weather, of times, what theirs what it may they learn how to handle the rough and the smooth. Their friendship, their work, their essential caring is carved on the rocks for all those who choose to know that his nature is one beyond shame. Their joy where they are in their cosmic worldview, their love, which was often quite daring. Their hopes and their dreams, known only by few. So now they are one, at last reunited. In heaven as on earth, a unique threesome. Their thanks for their heart on the world they created. Joan Eardley and Stephen and Lil Neilson.
In 1960 Dundee, the popular place to meet was the tavern at the top of Old Park Hill, now demolished. A pub with an open coal fire where old men sat, and a room at the back which was for blackjack and sang vaudeville and sons.
Come gather round people wherever you roam, and admit the two waters around you have grown, and accept that soon you'll be dressed to the bone. If your time will be worthwhile saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are changing.
When Joan tragically died in 1963, Moira went to Jamaica to dance her way to fame. Lil stayed on the Catterline to carry on in Joan's name. Rita, who helped look after Joan, chose opera, rhymed for her even. Sue carried on in London, partying and writing plays, having, in trying to make a Superman accepted for production, made her suddenly change her ways. She moved back to Scotland. It was now 1970. It was a lonely life for Lil, living on her own at Catterline. The houses on the row were mainly deserted, apart from Mrs. Taylor's. Angus Neil, who'd been Joan's faithful companion and artist friend, was now in a mental home, his Catterline house having been mysteriously burned down.
When we die, we expand into the realms of the moon. Our brains hold the imprints of all the stars. We journey through the Sun, Venus, Mercury, until we come again into the neighborhood, Earth, where our cosmic expanse concentrates itself into an embryo born by an earthen mother.
The so-called dead are as alive as the so-called living. They are around us all the time. They never forget.
our dear ones who have died, if we can keep our thoughts of them constantly and vividly before us during our waking life, then the memory pictures we lovingly carry within us will enable the dead to have an influence upon our world, to pour their will into it, so that their will lives on in the will of those who are still alive. Every night when we take the path of the spirit, in the opposite direction from the physical, those who have died before us are the ones who we follow after. Every night when we enter the spiritual world, beings of the higher hierarchies, who never incarnate on earth, are, to speak metaphorically, nearest the front. And then,
Behind them come those souls with whom we have connections of destiny and who pass through the gate of death before us. We follow them, even though we are unconscious. We follow them in our unconscious thoughts, for that part of the way which is given to us in every period of sleep.
even in the shortest sleep, we experience time running backwards, which is the way forward to the realm of spirit, out of which the world originated.
Made the most of the wild sea coast. The paraffin lamps, open fire, and the driftwood gathering from the beach. The chemical loo where the postcards were in colours of red and green. There was always a place at Catterline for a fairy queen, and there Sue arrived one day in spring, accompanied by her harem, Lynn and Mary. They'd all been drinking in the pub near Stonehaven. Things got out of hand when Mary started calling Sue names.
Wait a minute. Hey!
Sue stormed off in a huff and hid in a ditch until their car passed. Then, bad luck, when she begins to hitch, Lil's girlfriend finds her and takes her home to bed. And so that summer progresses with Lil being left on her own again. But not for long. There's a new world waiting in Norfolk if she's prepared to sing her song. Orchard, hazel trees, hens, ducks, horses and beans. Gaydon had been a stage manager at the Arts Theatre in London, where she'd first met Lil and where she was about to meet Miriam Margolyes. It was now 1980 and the modernisation of Catterline begun. What had been humble button bends before the oil boom were now gentrified homes. And the yuppies moved in. Sue hardly recognised the row with all the cars and patios. Lil continued to live in Norfolk, but there was discontent, something to do with rent. After 17 happy years with Gaydon, Lil made an exit. She couldn't believe her luck. Sue couldn't believe her luck to have Lil back, living up the coast, someone to visit, to talk to. They had remained good friends over the years, despite everything. It was an honour and a privilege to be asked to help move her paintings, mainly 6x4s, almost her life's work. Seated by the fire that night, Lil said, "I can't tell you how good it feels to have all these paintings in the right place, at last." Sue was more mesmerised by the wailing of the foghorn and the dancing of the firelight on the paraffin lamps.
Foggy night in Catterline, and all the seals are singing as the lights go on all along the road. I may be wrong, or maybe right, or maybe kind of swinging as the lights go on all along the road. There's Lil up there, and into and again, and Bridget as the lights go on all along the road. I may be wrong, I may be right, but I'm feeling glad I'm Bridget as the lights go on all along the road.
It was the year of the harmonic convergence, 16th of August, 1987, the same day that Joan passed on, and so they say, Elvis Presley. People throughout the world were working with crystal zones. Sue took Lil to Callanish, Isle of Lewis, where they camped inside the stones. Then Lil went off to Paris with some neighbours.
Living in Catterline, shopping Asta, living off the fat of the land. Playing with power balls, jogging up the fray. Joan Eardley, understand the 6 sad days of the 20th century lie dying at our feet. We've got 10 years to make it whole again. Better take the Pictish Creed. Living in Catterline, shopping Asta, living off the fat of the land. Playing with power boats, jogging up the bay. Would the goddess understand? Land of his all around us, standing stones and circles abound. The spirit sings, only we hearken it, get our heads up off the ground. The tide has turned, the boat is waiting, where the river meets the sand. The sun is up, the birds are singing, welcome to the promised land. Sue's sister Maura had Parkinson's disease, but was still busy with dance. Rita Gwynagall was traveling the world with her opera company, and Fiona Laird had married and lived in a manse. Lil was living in St Andrews, acquiring increasing fame. Lil acquired a second cottage on the road, number 9, which, without electricity or water, made an excellent studio theatre with a tree nursery behind. Lil was beginning to exhibit again, her biggest show to date, at 369 Gallery, Cargate, Edinburgh. Early 1990s saw planting trees at Croton, where Franco Zeffirelli's Hamlet was in production. Lil and Sue planted a lot of trees together in Ayrshire, Angus, and Ardnam Murchan. They decided to take a play to the Edinburgh Fringe, a musical about Earth and the struggle to save her, a combination of both their thought, set to Sue's music, illuminated by slides of Lil's paintings. Lil even took a lead part.
Peace and love and let you off, sister. like I'm the only one who wants to see the right things done, without about your feeble hypocrites. Consciously think that's not you, pretend to care and sucker you. Peace and love and please to wreck you off, sister. In the car park, in the school, act like men, that is the rule. If you cannot beat them, you must join them. I'm in charge, you keep your place. We're all part of a puerile race. Peace and love and please to wreck you off, sister. Sometimes I think I'd like to meet an ordinary bloke who's kind of sweet, humble, down to earth, uncomplicated. Someone simple, someone kind, who hasn't politics in mind. Peace and love and please to wreck you off, sister.
Non-biodegradable fabrications
between women and the elements.
Mother truck, we have got all unlocked, microchips, lead the way, we will set you all free, no more jobs there will be, you will bless, till they come there.
It did get a good review from musicians Sue and Lil knew, but mutiny was brewing. One of the singers, unbeknownst to Sue, didn't like tape music. The projectionist too kept finding fault, and together they brought the show to a halt after the fourth performance. Narelle, the lifesaver, turned up from London. Others had been waiting that morning, having heard the were singing. That was the end of Lil and Sue being together for a while.
Minnie the cat died beginning of 1991, followed by Liz Hill's mum in June, Annette Stephen in July. By the end of 1991, everything was in hand. Lil off to India again, Sue to Swaziland. They shared an overnight coach to London. Sue couldn't stop crying. Sue to Swaziland. They shared an overnight coach to London. Sue couldn't stop crying. It was that, said Lil later, that made me want to know who you really were.
Lil had extraordinary insights, that Indian trip. Everywhere she went, mainly around the Ganges, she'd break open dreams she had had in the UK. Lil claimed she'd had many incarnations in India. Several involved Sue as a wife and Gaydon as her mother. Once, when the boat they were all in turned over, Lil saved her mother while Sue and her baby went under. The most startling incarnation was when Sue had been Lil's uncle, Emperor Akbar. The uncle had loved his nephew dearly, but because of his position and the politics of the time, it was incumbent upon him to put Lil to death for a crime she had committed. Lil walked to the exact spot where she had been thrown over the parapet.
There was a woman from Aberdeen who gave Lil a present of a metal medallion that clanged. Lil said the clanging noise was the sound of the Chancellor's chain when he came to collect her the day of her execution. The Aberdeen woman had been the Chancellor. Another woman that Sue had met in a pub in London's West End became very attached to Lil and stood by her like a friend. This woman, Fran, had been my right-hand man, said Lil.
All the incarnations made sense of the present situation. Lil said she hadn't had enough mothering, having lost her baby sister, and she became the eldest of 9. It's the unconditional love a mother has for her son, said Lil. She was going to have to hang on to that one.
Moira was happy that Sue and Lil had met up. She it was, after all, had been instrumental all these years before anything like mature, and she was sad that it fell apart. apart through the 1990 musical disaster, even after Africa.
A walk in the park, an acorn, a poppy left on unfinished walls, walls that have to come down. Do pop up when you come down, said Fran the homemaker. I too will go home to keep warm and think about myself. No one is less loved. The smell of WD-40 on warm African hands. The next weekend, I stabbed the poppy through its heart with its own pen and felt quite good about it.
Moira and Lil sat and talked in the car where the River North Esk flows by the round tower by Brecon Cathedral. Moira eats oatcakes toasted at Lil's and sits in the corner of the unfinished extension where the blue bottle marks the spot. Lil says Moira's mother has to love her a lot.
Moira had a pallidotomy operation on her brain. Lil had been complaining of pain and the dreadful symmetry her life had taken. How she had been left holding the baby, but had kept her side of the bargain.
When Moira dies in 1997, just when a Hale-Bopp comet has risen, her husband Peter comes over from Canada to speak with Lil. Who would have suspected that Lil would be gone by 1998? Or that he, Peter, 1 year on? Or Moira Turner's son, Ian, Moira the star of the show, found burnt on the floor of his home? Who else, at the age of 14, will ask the artist of 21 how to paint the sun?
O great spirit of the west, where the sun goes down each day to come up next, we turn to you in praise of sunsets and in thanksgiving for changes. You are the powerful cycle that pulls us to transformation. When it is time for us to go to rest, do not desert us, but receive us in the arms of our loved ones.
In 1999, Sue acquired her own venue.
By Brian Cox had had his debut. It was across the road from where Mary Shelley had been inspired to write Frankenstein, and where in the 1960s there had been a church and two pubs, the Arctic and a market bar run by Jim Crawford, a Jack Vitriano type figure with his sleek black hair, white shirt and barman's waistcoat. It had the best pint in Dundee, or so said the dockers and the pilot's daughters.
There once there was dockers and dancers. There once pubs bright to the skies. Where art is in the heart of the people, and later is everyone's cries. So that's how they brought the theatre from Dundee to Catterline. There's after a lot of mixed media